Welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning. Let's now move to our first conversation this morning. Every global brand, whether in tech, fashion, finance, or consumer goods, began as a local story. A small team, a simple idea, a product built to solve a problem close to home. But only a select few managed to break through the limits of geography and competition to become names recognized across continent. So what creates that difference? Why do some companies remain strong local players while others evolve into global brands with influence far beyond their home market? Is it superior strategy, consistent innovation, stronger leadership, or the ability to adapt to diverse consumer expectations? And in today's hyper-connected world, how much does technology accelerate that journey from local relevance to global scale? Now, these are the questions shaping business ambition today, especially for emerging markets where potential is high, but structural challenges remain. Understanding what separates local code from global success is essential for any company hoping to compete internationally. Today, we are joined by Ibrahim Olayokun. He's a senior software engineer. Good morning, Ibrahim. It's good to have you on Business Morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being here.
All right, let's get right into it. What in your view is the biggest difference between a local company and a global brand?
There are quite a number of them. Firstly, I would pick audience. Secondly, identity, use of technology, leadership, and culture. When you pick audience, for example, local brands are usually narrowed by one of them as a geographical location, also the markets they choose to play in. When you look at identity, local brands have this confined identity towards the culture of the area they're playing in. Also, the use of technology, they do not really leverage technology to its fullest. When you look at global brands on the audience spectrum, they are targeting their identity isn't limited to the area with which they play in, for example, or the area with which they are found. So if you look at Apple, for example, I mean, their major market is in the US, but it's transcended beyond the US to different geopolitical areas across the world. And in terms of their identity, they have this identity whereby it not just speaks to where they are, they have identity in form of the Chinese market. How they look in the Chinese market is the same way they look in the US market, the same way they look in the African market, and also the European market as well. Yeah.
When a business starts thinking about global expansion, what should be the first question it asks itself?
Well, the first question should be tilted towards value proposition. Whatever value we are proposing that is meant to go across where we are right now, the question is, when we take it to other space, other markets, will they survive in that area? What are the things we need to break those markets as well? So usually what I would recommend is create a roadmap to say, this is where we are right now. This is where we want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. This is, we want to explore about 10 new countries or hundreds of countries. And so, okay, what are the things for each country? How do we penetrate them? And start creating the brand that would speak across each one of those markets here. And by so doing, with time, you find out that, okay, they find out this is how they are going to penetrate the market. And while they are still at that, creating the brand awareness, they create this saying for themselves where they say your identity precedes you. That is, before they get to those markets, they already know about them.
So how important is brand identity in determining whether a company can go global?
Oh, that's very, very important, because the way and manner with which your brand is structured determines how far you would go, in the sense that if your brand is confined to one particular area, it wouldn't play out in other areas as well. It wouldn't play out in other markets. I mean, your brand is basically saying, excuse me, please. Your brand is about what you have, how you look or how people perceive you, how people see you. So if you have a very strong brand, yeah, definitely you would go places.
All right, so let's speak about some of the branding mistakes that local companies make that limit or would limit their expansion potential.
One of them is over-localization, right? When you create a brand that is strongly tied to a particular message or a particular area or a particular domain, yeah, that creates a problem for you because it wouldn't speak to other areas or other markets. Another mistake is inconsistency in their identity. That is, how they look here in Nigeria is not the way they look in the US, is not the way they look in China, is not the way they look in Japan, across the globe. So, and not leveraging technology to its fullest.
Mm. Okay, so still on brand and strategy, how do you think SMEs build a brand that resonates both locally and internationally? Because that's something to look at.
Absolutely. What I would recommend in this case is usually they should leverage storytelling, right? And if you remember, way back in the days, there were MTN adverts that we had that it speaks to multiple cultures, not just the Yoruba. There are advertisements that we see using the Yoruba culture. They are the ones we see using the Igbo culture. They are the ones we see using the Hausa culture. So they've been able to create a value to say that applies to different cultures, but it's still from the same brand. And we all know that once we see MTN, it doesn't matter who is using it. Another investment towards branding I would recommend is what's it called? Going digital first, leveraging the use of websites, advertisements online, on being visible everywhere, making sure that everyone can see you, using e-commerce platforms as well. And then balanced locality with global appeal. What this There's the word I came across recently, GLOCAL, that is global and local combined together. So if you look at what they have currently as a local brand, where they are currently as a local brand, how do they merge it with their expectation as a global brand, bringing it together, creating sense of purpose, and also their leadership structure as well to say, we are going global and this is how we're going to achieve that.
And let's now move our focus to technology and also innovation. We
Yes.
understand now in today's world, how much technology influence a company's ability to actually scale globally? Do you think they can actually do it without the help of technology?
It is possible. However, that's very complicated doing it without technology because technology seems to have narrowed the distance between different markets. It has narrowed the gap between different areas when it comes to the industries we all brands play in. So take for example, prior to Corona, there was this remote working has actually been a thing before Corona, but 2020 it became widespread, it became a necessity, and this happened due to leveraging the use of technologies like Zoom and Google Meet and Microsoft Teams. And you could see that companies could hire even engineers out of the country they are currently based in. We had Nigerian developers working for companies in the US. Also, we also had companies that are able to sell their products across different countries. The likes of AliExpress also had to leverage technology to be able to penetrate markets in other countries as well. So it is a necessity, the use of technology to expand globally.
Can a local company become global without major technological investments? Now we're looking at the investment part now. Do you think they can actually become global without that?
That's highly unlikely. It's a very tough one.
Okay.
I'm not sure I see that happening because without tech, you can't. It's going to be very difficult to scale globally, to scale your logistics, do your marketing, customer support. I mean, technology is absolutely essential in this case. So it's very difficult.
All right, let's now move to leadership and also culture, because believe it or not, if you're talking about local and escalate to global, we have to look at the leadership part. So what role does leadership mindsets play in turning a local company into a global brand?
Well, leadership is it's if you look at a vehicle, for example, you need the engine to run. You also need someone at the driver's seat to actually steer the vehicle. And leadership in this case is the one steering the vehicle in the direction with which it goes. So if you have a reckless driver, definitely you will get involved in an accident. And so I believe visionary leadership is essential. Leaders must take beyond their local success to expand their horizons. Yeah, they must be willing to take risk and also prioritize global standards. So as well, in summary, if you look at the instance I gave initially about the vehicle, leadership is the one steering the direction of the company, where they go and how far they would go. So visionary leadership mindset is something a local brand needs to embrace to be able to go global.
So how can businesses build a culture that actually supports international growth?
So we've seen this play out in a lot of foreign companies, even local, well, some of our own companies that have gone global as well. And one of the things they do is cross-cultural training for employees, diversifying cultural backgrounds in the organization. And so I think there's this part where that's where DEI comes into play. And then also, another thing is the inclusivity policies, making policies that are inclusive to different backgrounds, different domains, and then leveraging on global collaboration tools. That's where the likes of Slack and Teams come into play. So these are things they could leverage to build culture for international growth.
So what's one thing a local business can start doing today to increase its chances of global expansion?
Good question. And I would say strengthening their digital presence, right? How they look to different markets. They have to make sure they are out there, put themselves out there, let the world know about them. Even countries that do not, maybe they are not there at the moment, or they are not planning to be in the next probably 5 years at least, but let them know. Create that brand awareness for everywhere. So that you just be like MTL will say, everywhere you go. Thank you.
Okay, so for founders dreaming of international success, what mindset shift do they need to make first?
Um, I would say they should shift away from the local mindset to more of an international mindset. They shift their practices from local standards to international standards as well. And they move on from survival mode to scalability mindsets, the kind of mindsets that makes you prepared for what the future might hold. Even if it's something you're not expecting, you being able to make on the sorry make decisions on the go, with putting your company first and being sure that you would be able to grow into different areas, different different zones. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your insights on Business Morning Show. Ibrahim Olayokun is a senior software engineer. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, thank you.
And still to come after the break, how Nigeria can leverage youth power to unlock demographic dividend. Do stay with us. And welcome back. You're still watching Business Morning. Let's now move to our second conversation this morning. Nigeria has one of the youngest populations in the world, a huge asset in a global economy driven by innovation, talent, and digital skills. But unlocking the full potential of this youthful population requires intentional policies, investment, and opportunities. This morning, we are examining how Nigeria can turn its large youth population into a real demographic dividend, boosting productivity, employment, and long-term growth. We'll explore what needs to change in education, skills development, entrepreneurship, and governance to harness this powerful resource. Joining us to break this down is Dr. Goodluck Norum. He's the Director Center for Data Analytics and Simulation, CDAS, Caleb University. Good morning, Dr. Goodluck. It's good to have you on Business Morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me once again.
All right. So let's go straight into it. Why is Nigeria's youthful population considered an economic advantage?
Yeah, of course. From the word youthful, you begin to understand that you're talking about energy, you're talking about capability, and all of that. And also from the side of statistics, you discover that the median age right now in Nigeria is about 18.1 years. So what it means is that at about 58 or 60% of Nigerians are under 30 years old. So at this point, you would understand that it is an economic advantage if used well. Implication is that a vast proportion of the population of Nigeria is in or approaching the working age, meaning that there is a lot of potential for labor. There is the possibility of having a lot of entrepreneurs. If properly mobilized, what it means is that this can be a powerful engine for productivity, for growth and development of Nigeria.
All right, so what exactly is a demographic dividend in practical terms?
Yeah, looking at it from a practical side, demographic dividend means that as much as possible, because we have a youthful majority, all right, that are in the productive stage, what it means is that it is a dividend rather than a burden. So the demography of Nigeria right now, looking at it from the youthful point of view, is a dividend that should be reaped rather than a burden. So it means that as much as possible, there are a larger pool of working age individuals compared to the people that are dependent on them. And this means that output, savings are boosted, and then there is expanded potential for human capital investment, and then there is high entrepreneurial potential or activity. So what it means is that for every older dependent, what it means is that Nigeria has about 14 young dependents on the average. So if these people become employed or self-reliant, the payoff economically is actually huge.
All right, so how well is Nigeria preparing its young people for the future of work?
To be honest, the reality is kind of patchy. So why I said it is patchy is because it is true that we have a youthful population that is large and growing. However, there is a challenge in converting, such potential into employable, such potential into such that is employable. So this implies that skilled labor, as much as possible, is far from optimal. Okay, looking at it from the point of view of data, Nigeria produces a lot of graduates every year from the institutions, from the universities. However, you discover that youthful unemployment is actually high. When you look at the data from the third quarter of 2023, the unemployment rate among youths between the ages of 15 and 24 was at about 8.6%. This is according to the
Okay, so what reforms are most urgent? Because we're looking at education and skill right now. So what reforms are most urgent in the education and skill training ecosystem?
Yeah, of course. Quickly, what should be done is to look at how to reform or restructure our education. And it should be restructured around employability. It should be restructured around self-reliance. It's not just enough that we have graduates that are being produced every year. We have to be sure that these graduates are trained and educated around the potentials of employability, the potentials of being self-reliant. Everybody will not work. Some people will want to do their own thing. So we must focus on ensuring that our reforms in education are centered around education and self-reliance. So technical, vocational training, digital literacy, practical skills, green skills, all right, must be tailored according to the needs of the industry. And then there has to be partnership between government, educational institutions, and even there has to be some sort of PPP, public-private partnership initiative that will help to address some of these issues or challenges that we're having with converting the young or youthful potentials into what can become an advantage for Nigeria.
Okay, so what sectors offer the strongest potential for large-scale youth employment?
Let's look at first agriculture. And why I'm mentioning agriculture is that that sector is underutilized in terms of its capacity and potential for employment. Agriculture, modern agriculture, as much as possible, um, could begin to look at efforts in modern agriculture could begin to look at the potentials in youth labor. So rather than leave the young people to just graduate and roam around the streets to look for jobs and all of that, efforts in agriculture could focus on seeing how these job seekers can be absorbed through quick training in modern agricultural practices so that they can begin to adopt them and get themselves employed, or even get employed for larger agricultural organizations. So that's for agri. Another sector that is really, offering potential for right now is the fintech to e-commerce to digital services. As much as possible, you find out that these sectors are doing well in terms of providing the potential for youthful employment. Okay, then you have logistics as well as the creative industries trying as much as possible to feature in terms of all of the potentials they have for youth and employment.
Also, how can Nigeria's private sector play a bigger role in absorbing youth talent?
All right, so this can really work at an early age when this young people are in the university. There has to be some sort of significant expansion in internship programs. Okay, private sector players should provide opportunities for young people to enjoy internships, and then for those that are not in the university or the higher institutions, opportunities should be provided for apprenticeship. Okay, and then there should be some opportunity for young people to have some terms of entry level, all right, into the workforce. So the private sector has a lot to do in making sure that all of these work out. Private sector players can also partner with the government as well as different educational institutions to design curriculum or curricula that are tailored towards bringing out the potentials in the young people, not just about what we already have in the Nigerian educational system. There has to be a restructuring of curriculum, and the private sector can partner with the different stakeholders in this regard to provide opportunity for young talents.
All right, so what barriers currently limit young entrepreneurs from scaling their businesses?
Yeah, the first thing one would say is finance, and that looks as if, yes, it is true. However, beyond finance, you discover that even when the funds are available to fund ideas and all of that, you discover that most young people are not mature enough in terms of their capabilities to be able to make use of these finances. So in as much as finance can be an issue, there also has to be some sort of understanding that finance is not the only problem, but lack of capabilities, inadequate training that would help to transform ideas into what it should be or into what they should be is a challenge that is making young entrepreneurs not to be able to scale in their business. There's something called bootstrapping. Even when you don't have money as such, you can learn to bootstrap. But sadly, a lot of young people don't know about all of this, and these are part that should be provided to help them take advantage of what they have to be able to move on.
How do you think government can improve access to finance? Since that's like one of the major reasons, and also business support for youth-led startups.
Government can do a lot, especially in providing youth-focused grants, all right, and then also providing low-interest loan schemes. There has to be some sort of setup, all right, of different innovation hubs. We have different geopolitical zones, I think 6 of them. There can be from the national level, there can be some sort of provision of industrial or innovation hub or entrepreneurial support centers, right, that can help these young people move on with their business. There should also be some sort of support from government in terms of incentive, maybe in terms of business registration. There has to be some The government has to find a way of lowering entry barriers for young people so that young people can actually have access to finance in terms of grants, also have access to incentive in terms of lowering the entry barriers, maybe by form of maybe discounts or cutting off some unnecessary, not unnecessary, but some necessary monies that they have to pay to start up their business. Government can waive that off for them so that they can be able to take advantage of the potentials available to them.
With Nigeria's growing tech scene, how can digital skills be expanded nationwide?
Yeah, so it is very important, and I see some schools already doing their best, even from primary and secondary level up to the university level, trying to provide some sort of digital literacy training for young people. However, it must not really be a thing for the schools alone. Nigeria as a nation has to really step in making sure that digital skills are provided in you know in large potentials, in large scale that will help young people to learn. So one area that can work is through the curricula. It's very important that from secondary school even up to the tertiary and vocational levels, there has to be mandatory digital literacy training that young people must undergo, and then not just to undergo it as per maybe shadowing the class. It has to be practical. They have to be made to build projects. They have to be made to come up with initiative as a result of some of these digital skills that they are digital skills training that they are receiving. So they have to build projects. This will help to confirm that yes, they have been able to learn, in terms of whatever learning or training that are being provided. Then online training platforms should be provided as well. There has to be partnership between government and private technology firms that can help to extend access, especially to areas that are, not included, maybe underserved regions in terms of technology. So there has to be some sort of widespread internet access, which must be affordable and should be made that should be made a priority, so that even those in the interior, in my village, for example, should be able to boast of having access to internet and digital skills training. That will help to improve the whole narrative.
All right, let's. Are there global examples where Nigeria can learn from in turning youth population into economic strength?
Oh yeah, of course. Let's take China, for example. At some point, one time I saw a video where young kids in China were made to go to, I think, vehicle manufacturing plants, and what they were being taught from that early age, what this meant, what this tool meant, what this lever could do, what this could do. So as much as possible, Nigeria can learn from China. China as a country has been doing well in the global space in terms of business and commerce. And we have a lot of business tycoons in Nigeria that does businesses with China directly. So we can take advantage of these channels, all right, to see what has China done that is working for them, and how can we replicate such in our country today. Nigeria has a lot of potentials, but converting those potentials is where we have this challenge. And we can mirror from countries that are working. And I've mentioned China, for example, and then Malaysia is also doing its own bit. At least I know of these two countries at this point that are doing exceptionally well, that we can mirror and replicate whatever it is that they have done, so that Nigeria can also be included when we are talking about global discussions, global narratives.
All right. Finally, what should Nigeria prioritize now to ensure its useful population becomes a demographic dividend and not a demographic burden?
Yeah, I like that part of making sure that the demographic dividend is reaped, and not just this youthful population becoming demographic burden. Here is the catch. If Nigeria doesn't do what is necessary for young people right now, what it means is that you're going to have a large population of people who are going to grow old and become a burden to the nation. So what Nigeria can do, educational reform. There has to be a lot of compliance. There has to be a lot of policy around providing evidence-based education, practical-based education, all right, that involves skill training in terms of entrepreneurial skills, digital skills, and technical skills, all right? It's very, very important. And not just in policy, there has to also be a compliance check to make sure that this policy is implemented from top to bottom. All right. And then there has to be entrepreneurship support for this kind of initiatives to work. So there has to be some, for example, let's look at NYSC. Young people finish school and then they're expected to go serve. I think if all the money they will have gotten as salaries or stipends for the month, if they are aggregated, and then they are made to go through a 3 months or 6 months training, and then that fund is aggregated and given to them as seed capital, trust me, the narrative will change as far as Nigeria is concerned. So I'm not saying that they should scrap NYSC, but they should reform its process so that it can be result-oriented. It can yield results. And then there has to be labor market absorption, meaning that private and there has to be private and public sector initiative to provide ready jobs for people, for young people to be able to, get into. So infrastructure is also very key. Healthcare facilities, social services is key because they provide some sort of support to whatever it is that Nigeria would want to do to improve or reap the dividends from the youthful population. So the goal must be to transform the demographic potential into actual economic productivity. And trust me, this will help to ensure social stability, because young people would stop thinking of going into different vices or negative things, because there is already a provision that would absorb that potential or the energy that they have. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the Business Morning Show, Dr. Goodluck Nurum. It is Director, Center for Data Analytics and Simulation, Caleb University, Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, that's been our focus today on Business Morning. We looked at from local code to global scale, what makes the difference between local companies and global brands, and also how Nigeria can leverage youth's power to unlock demographic dividend. Before we go, I'll give my take on how Nigeria can leverage youth power to unlock demographic dividend. You know, everybody shouts at the top of their voices and also with their keypads. Nigeria has youth, Nigeria has future. But let's be honest, we are wasting our greatest asset. Over 60% of Nigerians are under 30, yet most of them are either hustling on vibes, jackpotting, or wasting away because the government has no plans. Demographic dividend is not automatic blessings. It's a time bomb. If you do not train, employ, empower young people, that population will turn from dividend to disaster. Now, imagine if you can actually trust the youth with power, not just to dance on TikTok or vote every 4 years, but to lead industries, to drive policies, to also build companies. The same energy that the youth have used to run tech startups, go to protest grounds, create global music waves. If we channel it right, Nigeria would not be begging IMF or the World Bank. Instead, the case would be the reverse. But until leadership stops seeing youth as a threat and starts seeing us as partners, that demographic dividend will just remain one fancy grammar for conference. So I ask you, is Nigeria raising builders, or are we raising a frustrated army waiting to explode? But what more can I say? I'm only but a servant, spreading the word of carnage that will come if not properly tamed. And of course, the business of the breakfast show continues with the big story after this break. Do stay with us.